How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is June 2nd, 2020. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. Yes, Dave.
June 2nd.
Yes.
My mom's birthday.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
91.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's basically the exact same age as Granny. She'll be 91 on November 4th.
Yeah. No. Your grandmother and my mom are the same age. Yeah.
Holy smokes! Wow.
Yeah, it's really sad. I can't see her, so we actually had a absolutely heartbreaking day yesterday. I don't know if it's, well, obviously the whole weekend was heartbreaking in different ways, but Marianne was just like, we're going to go see her because it's her birthday. And I go, we can't see her. And it's like, we're going to go see her because it's her birthday. And it's like, we can't see her. We're not allowed in. And so she came up with this idea, and it actually sort of worked. We're not allowed in the place, but my mom's room is, there's a window in my mom's room. Now, the problem with the window is that there's all these bushes. And so essentially we had to crawl through all these bushes. And, we called her up and turn around in her wheelchair and look out the window. And so we did. So we actually got to see her through the window. And I mean, it's the most I've seen her since the end of February. But we did see her.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's great and it's sad.
It's sad, but it's great. You got to see her.
I got to see her. Yeah, I got to see her face for the first time.
That's the first time in what, 2 months?
Since the end of February. So March, April,
February.
May, 3 months.
Yeah.
3 months, and we were crying. And
it's not ideal, but you got to see her.
Yeah, and then I got to drive home with police sirens and exits blocked and curfews. Geez, it was. It's like it's funny because it's like how's Seattle?
Well, Seattle was apparently all right until tonight, and then all of a sudden it wasn't all right again.
So I hear.
We're watching the news, and some news reporter got hit with a canister of what the hell do you call it? Anyway, practically blew up. She went running.
Oh God!
And then about 10 minutes later, she's just still reporting from the other side of the fence. So that was pretty hardcore. But yeah, it's apparently complete insanity down there tonight. It was definitely not peaceful yesterday. It began relatively peaceful, but then people started looting and destroying things in Bellevue. And then
I heard that too, yeah.
Started out relatively... In fact, I think the last time you were here... Did we go to Brazilian Steakhouse last time you were here?
I don't recall if we did or not.
Well, one way or the other, if you're listening to this and we ever went to the Brazilian Steakhouse together, we ain't going again anytime soon, because that place got destroyed.
Oh, God.
And then today it was just madness down there, so not good.
I feel so bad for people with their businesses just getting destroyed. It's so surreal. This whole thing is so surreal. And then today, it was, I can't even fathom what happened today. I mean, it's almost like, come on, how does it get to this level? We're in, this is like a really serious situation. I mean, everywhere. And I'm so, I can't imagine how it got here. It's like people and the police are just the bad police officers are just like, and the president and really a lot of the political leaders. I'm just so disappointed. I mean, it's not disappointed isn't even the word. I'm flabbergasted when I saw what happened today. I couldn't even. It's like we've been going through this. I mean, I've seen riots for years and years and years and everything like that, but this is different. This is like a low point in my lifetime in this country, I think. Maybe, yeah, I think it is. And it could get a lot worse because the tensions on both sides. I mean, we need a healer, and we got a guy who's the exact opposite, and we've got a country where people are just like jumping on each other. I mean, we got enough problems to jump on each other for some of the things that people are jumping on each other for. And, so much divisiveness. There's always going to be differences of opinion, but it's just so high strung right now. And I get it. But a lot of people don't get it. And, I don't know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I was like going on a tirade all afternoon about the political leaders, and it's not all of them, but somebody just needs to be, somebody needs to just take charge, and not in the way that this guy's been doing, because I don't know how this ends. This doesn't end good. I don't know how this ends other than he's out of office, and then we're going to have other problems. They've created this horrible environment in this country, and we're still in the middle of a pandemic that everyone's forgotten about, because this is so much worse as far as like the violence and everything like that. And so many of the people who are protesting, I mean, I feel so bad for them, because the people who are using this protest as a way to loot and things like that are like, making it seem to the people who don't understand it, like that's what all these people are, which creates even more divisiveness. It's just been a horrible couple days, and
Well, WWE, who likes to pretend that nothing's ever going on in the world, today
they still did pretty much.
Jaxson Ryker, of all people here today, tweeted, "Thankful for the President of the United States that we have. God bless America, built of freedom. For God no more." He adds his catchphrase.
Yeah, I don't know if he's in charge. If that's like he's trying to do his gimmick. And I mean, like it was like.
Well, dude, all I know about this is he got lambasted by people in WWE. I mean, if this is a guy playing a gimmick, this is the dumbest thing. It's stupid.
It's stupid
either way. But I mean, no one else apparently thinks he's doing a gimmick, because they're cutting non-wrestling promos on this guy.
Well, Kevin Owens kind of said if you're doing a gimmick, what did he say exactly? Kevin Owens had the best tweet. I mean, I think. It really, okay, I saw what Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Mustafa Ali, but those are like, consistently, man, I don't want to say like, oh, some guys are like really good guys and everything like that. And, I think Mustafa Ali, who I don't know at all, I think he's a great guy. Everything that he's said through this whole thing, he's a former police officer. He's got a lot of experience in this, in Chicago, which is a unique place to be a police officer anyway. And then Sami Zayn's, he's a good-hearted guy. And Owens, Owens is a really intelligent, level-headed guy.
Kevin Owens here says, "The freedom you speak of entitles you to speak your mind all you want. I'm not here to argue that. I just really need to tell you that I think you pushing your shitty wrestling catchphrase as all of this is happening is absolutely fucking pathetic. Good night," he adds.
Well, it is. I mean, this is the wrong time for that. But, here, it's, well, we'll wait how this thing politically, plays out. But there's a lot of people who are quiet, and they cannot afford to be quiet, because every day that they're quiet and nobody does anything is a day that this thing gets more and more fractured. And, I don't know. I was all fired up on it this afternoon. Now I just can't even really talk about it because it's just so depressing. And here's the other thing too. Linda McMahon is, a key person. I mean, really key person in the re-election campaign. And I think that everyone there, you kind of make your understanding, okay, the McMahons are tight with Trump. And, Shad Khan, was a donor to Trump too. I don't know if he will be for this coming one, but he was for the last election. So it's not like, it's one company and not the other. They both are. And rich people often donate to both sides because you're currying favors with both sides anyway. But Linda McMahon is a lot more than just a donor. I mean, she's like a key in his reelection. And then you've got, it's got to be real tough for those guys to rationalize this. It's one thing, he's just working for Vince in a lot of ways. Some people will overlook it and some people will just, that's just wrestling. And I get it. I mean, like a lot of people work for major corporations that have political affiliations that they don't agree with. And it's just the reality of having a job. But it's got to be pretty, it's got to a real tough period. It's like I don't see anyone quitting or anything like that over this, but it's got to be, for the ones who don't care. And a lot of people don't. It's one thing, but it's real hard now to just go through and not care and just kind of, just kind of like do your job, because everyone's job and everyone's future. Like no one knows what's happening next. Before it was kind of like, I always had the mentality that like, well, in the end, it's all going to work out and everything's going to be cool, somehow, right? Because we've been through so many disasters, and natural disasters and things like that. And they're horrible, horrible, horrible. But in the end, everything kind of seems to get back on keel. And, you may have like real bad years if you live in the wrong part of the country. But life goes on and life will still go on. But this is such a tough period mentally to go through. So I don't know. We could use the wrestling to.
Well, we can also do the tie-in to Jon Jones, who was out on the streets trying to prevent problems. This in the middle of a feud with Dana White, allegedly over money, and claiming he's going to vacate the light heavyweight title.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing with Jon, unfortunately, it's Jon, and again, it's like it's cool. He's out there trying to patrol the streets. I don't want to knock that at all, but he's also videotaping himself doing it, and it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's like I just don't trust that it's just like, well, I can do this, I don't know. It looks good on camera, you know what I mean? But I just don't trust Jon Jones as far as like, what it's just too many disappointments with Jon Jones. That's all what I have to say. Now, as far as the feud goes, there's another one. It just got completely out of hand. This one should have been, Dana White should have called him and said, okay, you got a problem? Come here, let's talk, or let's just stay there and we'll talk. And I don't say anything to inflame you, and you don't say anything to inflame me. And if the press asks you or me, we'll just go, we're discussing and working this out. Instead, it's almost like a microcosm of Dana's a microcosm of Trump in so many ways. I mean, right down to, not going not sitting in the building or in the, right in front of in his own show because the Nevada Commission mandated that he would have to wear a mask, so he didn't go. Or, he went in a different room, but he wouldn't go in that room in the room because of the regulations, rather than just be like everybody else because he's Dana White, right? So that alone, tells you something about him. But he's made it a lot worse. And Jon, it just started with the Jones and Ngannou fight, where both of those guys kind of thought that it was an intriguing fight and maybe we can get paid more money for the fight, even though Jon had an existing contract. And business-wise, Dana was whatever. Dana was not going to pay a lot more, and that's the whole deal with the ESPN deal. I told everybody when this ESPN thing started, that this is what was going to happen, that they are no longer, subservient and needing Conor McGregor and Jon Jones. They can just, they're getting guaranteed money. Now, ESPN may or may not. And Jon sort of figured that, because Jon wrote a tweet about, maybe I'll just sit out, and he wrote to ESPN and goes, if you need me in 2021, and you want to kick in some money, then, call me and I'll fight Israel Adesanya and just vacate the title, because he doesn't want to fight Reyes again, because a lot of people think Reyes beat him, and he says he has got nothing to prove, and whatever he wants to do, he's not forced to fight. I think that he's got this thing where he wants to get released. They're not going to release him, I don't think. I mean, he may try to sue to get out of his deal, and then he may,
to do what?
I don't know. He says to box, but does he really want to box?
Come on.
Does he really want to box? He can go to Bellator, and they'll take him with open arms, and he'll get a lot of money from Bellator. But I don't know. Maybe he could. They can't afford to pay him what UFC pays him. They do not have the revenue, and there's nobody else. I mean, I suppose one's got a lot of cash, but they don't have. I don't think that kind of cash, and if they do, they'll lose so much money on Jon. I mean, the problem is that nobody has the capacity to make money on Jon other than the UFC while paying Jon millions of dollars for a fight. And, but Dana claimed, one thing, and Jon, they're both calling each other liars, and I don't know who's telling the truth in this situation, but it's gotten to where Jon's saying he's going to abdicate the title and he's not going to fight for UFC, and Dana's going like, you got all the money you need for the rest of your life, go retire, kind of calling his bluff on this one.
Well, I will say, in the battle of the liars, Jon Jones claims he never said something. Dana White says, I've got the text messages. Jon Jones says, fine, release him. And Dana never did. So if that's the case, I tend to lean towards Jon Jones. He dared the guy to release the text messages that are allegedly there. Dana didn't do it.
Jon could release them too?
I guess he could, yeah.
Although technically, contractually, I don't think he can. And Dana contractually may not be able to either. There may be confidential, because there's a confidentiality clause in the UFC contracts that completely forbids this on both sides. So, I guess if you give approval, I think that would probably, but does Dana really want that out? Then you're going to start, every time something happens, you're going to release text messages. And then all the fighters are going to be afraid to say anything because they're afraid that their private text messages to him are going to get released. So it opens up a can of worms.
They shouldn't be worried. If they don't want them released, they won't be released. But Jon Jones said he gave verbal permission to release them.
He sure did. Yeah. So, it's two guys I don't trust. And they're fighting, and it got out of hand, and it's another issue. And the guys, let's face it, the guys, the guys are underpaid. The problem is that the leverage at this point, for the money that he wants, it doesn't make sense for UFC. The one thing that it's like some people are going like, and I've seen this from people who should be much smarter about economics, where this mentality is that if Deontay Wilder made $28 million for the fight with Tyson Fury, and it did, I think it was 850,000 pay-per-view buys, and Jon Jones can do, he did that with Cormier and with Ngannou. I don't know. Do you think Jon Jones and Ngannou can do 900,000 pay-per-view buys? I think I think that's a viable number, maybe more. It's an intriguing fight, but the problem is that UFC's still only going to get $17 million plus the $16.7 million in the overseas money, especially now when there's no live gate. So, people are going like, and I've heard it's like, well, Jon's a much better fighter than Deontay Wilder. Jon's the greatest of all time. Deontay Wilder's, kind of got a padded record, and he sure didn't look that great against Fury in the second fight. And even in the first fight, he got outboxed, but he decked Fury a few times. But Jon's a better fighter in his sport than Wilder is in his. So therefore, Jon's a bigger draw and he's a better fighter. Or, I mean, yeah, I would say Jon's a bigger draw. I mean, Fury, Jon's a bigger draw. But the economics of boxing are completely different. You've got people who are, you've got promoters who are used to paying fighters a different amount, and with UFC, it's like Jon Jones is not worth $30 million or $28 million to UFC. If ESPN wants to kick in, he's not worth that to ESPN, really, as far as profit margin goes on these shows. I mean, you could argue that he's not quite. He's not quite worth that. Although he's worth a lot more than, if ESPN wants to kick in, he is worth money to ESPN, not to UFC, over and above what he's probably making right now. So, that's just the economics of the situation when, so that's, essentially the deal is ESPN's going to have to step in and say, he can make us money, and but ESPN doesn't want to pay more money. They've got a contracted amount of money, and in their mind, that was their obligation, and UFC's job is to pay the fighters. So it's a real tricky thing. But and again, is ESPN, that's Disney, right? Disney right now isn't going to be sitting here paying $20 million right now more to Jon Jones. I mean, maybe in 2 years when the theme parks are back running and sports are running and ad revenue is sort of back to where it was, if that's even going to happen. Maybe, but not this month. So, so we're basically in a game of chicken. But you know what? It doesn't really matter because how much can we really worry about it? The reality is that UFC's guaranteed all this money with or without Jon Jones. They're going to survive. And, Jon, like every UFC fighter, Jon should get paid more if they would all stick together and everything. I mean, we could say that with everyone. If you all stick together, there's a reason that the baseball players and hockey players and things like that are making so much more, because they stuck together and they fought, and these guys didn't, and probably won't, because individual sports are much tougher than team sports to get people to stick together, and the fighting careers are short, and the top guys are so well paid as compared to the rank and file that the rank and file are also easily replaceable, because the top guys are the ones who draw all the money, as opposed to like you have a whole team walk out, that's kind of a disaster in a league, and you can't replace an entire team with secondary players, because it would just it doesn't work as easily. So just the nature of individual sports, it's a tough deal.
Grant Berkland, a.k.a. Danny Havoc, passed away, I believe, yesterday. Game Changer Wrestling, CZW.
Yeah.
Lots of people writing about him. Kevin Owens, Jon Moxley talked about how he helped design, I believe it's first Jon Moxley shirt.
Well, the first AEW Moxley t-shirts he designed, he did the designs, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, Danny Havoc. I have mutual friends who tell me that he was super, super, super smart. One of the smartest guys in the business. I didn't know him, but that's what was told. He died of a broken heart. His wife died in, I believe it was April. And I think he's been really despondent. I think is he 34 years old? I think 34 years old.
Yeah, I don't have an age here.
Yeah, I think. But that's what happened. He kind of had retired due to his injuries. And I know but he was talked into doing, when Game Changer Wrestling did their tour of Japan a couple months back, he was on the tour. So, and I'm sure that was like a great life experience. They really wanted him to get that experience. So that was cool. As part of their own shows. I mean, it wasn't like he went to, I think he worked some Big Japan as well, but but the Game Changer did their own shows in Japan, a couple of shows, and he was one of the guys that went. So, yeah, it's just been, another in the series of a lot of deaths of wrestlers in a very short period of time.
So we got 2 shows coming up on Wednesday. Very interesting that NXT is putting 2 matches on that we know of. The Drake Maverick Phantasma finals for the, I believe, still interim Cruiserweight title.
But Jordan Devlin should be able to come now.
Well, the irony was they did the show on Wednesday and they kept just saying it was the NXT Cruiserweight title. They took interim out of it. So
I didn't even realize that. So because athletes are now allowed to come. The North got to come to the TV tapings for Impact. Pac and those guys, Pentagon, should be able to come in for AEW. Jack Evans and Helico, some of these guys that have not been able to come in because of the borders being shut. There was basically, because this is largely due to baseball and hockey and basketball and these other sports opening up. So many of the baseball players live outside the United States, and a ton of hockey players do. I mean, I don't even think you could do the NHL without allowing everyone in, so because of that, then if you allow it for some people, you got to allow it for all people. So now wrestling can both companies can bring the guys in, and just whatever. In theory, I mean, if it's for the title, then I'm sure Jordan Devlin can come in and challenge the winner, and either way, it ends up the same way. However that is, I can't imagine Drake Maverick not being kept. It would be insane. It would be completely insane to cut him now. For him, either he was going to lose and not go to the finals, or he's got to, even if he loses, I mean, like, they could put Phantasma over, but in the end, they have to keep him, I think. I don't know.
I realize that there's not a lot of people hiring necessarily right now, but man, to focus on that guy and to push that guy and to send him all the way to the finals, and he's just free to go wherever he wants afterwards, I find that hard to believe.
Well, you know what? Okay, the thing is like, okay, so what's he going to do? Go to Impact? I mean, it's like Impact's not even a factor. He could go to AEW, and he's an entertaining guy, but he's not. It's not like he's a game changer. But the point is that, but why would you wouldn't want to send him to the finals, though? I mean, you wouldn't even want to focus on him if he's not going to stay. You just want to have him lose 3 matches and get it over with, right? I mean, he shouldn't beat. If he's really leaving, he shouldn't beat anybody on the way out. That doesn't even make sense. So I can't imagine them not keeping him. I mean, it just doesn't make sense at all.
So as noted, they've got that match. They've got the Mia Yim Candice LeRae match. And then the rest of the show is like a takeover hype show, which is great, I guess, if you want to hype the pay-per-view. But the last time they did one of these, the show died in the ratings.
And this will too.
That's an interesting decision to make.
Very interesting. Very interesting, because they're coming off their best rating in it feels like months. It's been a long, long time, off of that women's tag team match, which did very, very well. That you would think that this would not be the week to do that, especially because it's like, okay, if you're gonna hype, there's like paying dividends. Okay, it's like if you're gonna hype something, and it's going to be on pay-per-view, and you're making revenue off pay-per-view, so you want lots of buys, so you can go in there with the rationale, well, we can lose a week in ratings, but we're going to make it because we're going to make all kinds of revenue on pay-per-view. But this is not that. This is network. And it's like, you're not going to jumpstart the network by any means because there's a takeover on Sunday. That's not going to make the slightest bit of difference in network numbers. I mean, we've seen the only thing, SummerSlam doesn't even do that. The only thing that makes a difference in network numbers is WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. That's it, so it's like a takeover, hey, look, takeovers are fantastic, but it's not like, it's just like it doesn't make it basically doesn't make sense to sacrifice. Like sometimes, like I tell people, it's like sometimes when you have a show, like say or getting over characters, which is a different thing. Like you want to do vignettes to get over new characters, and the problem is if you do a really cool vignette and it's not action, you could lose, especially on a Wednesday, because there's the other alternative. People will switch to their show, and they do. But at the same time, you got to get new guys over. So sometimes you just got to sacrifice. Sometimes you got to have guys do promos because they have to build up matches, especially when it's AEW and they are on pay-per-view. It's just part of the game. And you have to make those sacrifices. And sometimes you have to make sacrifice when you're telling stories, because not every single aspect of a story is going to keep a lot of viewers like a hot match will. So that's just part of the deal. But a whole, like, let's say if we're going to do an hour of hype where we know it's not going to do a good number, and it won't, that unless it's something to build new characters, and I don't think that's going to be it. This is like a go home, like a hype show, like what AEW did on that Friday night, which was awesome. But they didn't do it on Wednesday. They didn't cut an hour off of Wednesday to do the countdown show. They got the countdown show on another night. If they could get USA to go in there and go, okay, the third hour, give us a third hour for a countdown show. If not, the countdown show's not worth it. I mean, it's not UFC. When those countdown shows were real important with the UFC, because, that thing paid off at the end on the Saturday night. The countdown show got you all jazzed up for the show. I mean, this may get you jazzed up for the show, but it's not going to produce any kind of new revenue, especially at a $10 price. I mean, let's even if we say it gets a few thousand people, it's just not worth it's not worth it, essentially. And I'm surprised that I'm really surprised, especially now, but anytime, I'm surprised that they're doing that.
So AEW, we got Cody versus Jungle Boy for the TNT title. Kenny Omega and Adam Page versus Jimmy Havoc, Kip Sabian for the tag titles. Jericho, Colt Cabana, Brian Cage will wrestle somebody. And Tony Schiavone will interview FTR.
Okay, so to me, the FTR interview is really important because this is their... They have to establish themselves as something, because the thing with FTR is these guys are super talented. I mean, they're actually a phenomenal team, but unless you watched NXT, you really don't, or went to house shows that 1-2 month period where they wrestled Bobby Roode and Chad Gable every night and tore the house down because they were given like 25 minutes because they'd complained that, and WWE was trying to make them happy. And then, that they still wouldn't sign. But I mean, the thing is like, unless you're one of those people, it's kind of like these guys were, for years have just essentially done nothing. I mean, I don't say done nothing, but, not been pushed as top people. And in AEW, they have to get over as top people. They're going to obviously work with the Young Bucks. And so the key is, the physical angles and the promos. And this promo's so to me, this promo for them is very, very important. I mean, Dax Harwood, which is the Scott Dawson. Which one are you, Dash or Dawson? Remember that's Chance. Which one's Dash, which one's Dawson from years ago. Okay, so anyway, he's a great promo. So I mean, I expect he'll pull it off, but I think that's very, very important. I think Cody and Jungle Boy are going to have a hell of a match. Jungle Boy's improved so much, and I just think they're going to, I know they're going to have a great match, or I'm pretty sure. And Omega and Page against Sabian and Havoc, they're going to have a good match. I mean, I've seen Omega with Sabian several times, and it's been pretty damn good. So I think that'll be good, So Jericho and Cabana, I don't think that anyone's expecting Jericho and Cabana to tear the house down, but it's going to be a quality match. and there'll be other shenanigans as well. So, yeah, I mean, I would expect going in that it's probably going to be a big night for AEW this week. I don't know how big is big right now. I guess we're going to find out if they go up from last week. I think that NXT not doing much with the show should help them a little bit. I don't know. I guess Tyson's not on it, because if Tyson was on it, they would probably be advertising it. Well, they taped it the very next day, so it's kind of like, to me, it's like, it would make sense to have him on it. So I don't know what's going on, but they have to do the follow up, because I think that there's going to be, they went off the air with the Tyson angle, so they got to come in and at some point during the show, further that Tyson angle. Whether it's, if he's not there, that's cool, but then that's up to Jericho to do the promo to further it, because I think that's what there's going to be a lot of curiosity with. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about Raw. What did you think of the show?
I liked it. I thought it moved pretty well. I mean, before we go with the show, okay, so obviously there's two key things on the show, and one's Gronkowski. Oh, we should probably talk about that in a second, and the other's the Nia Jax, Kairi Sane thing. I don't know, man. That she was way too close to throw her. I wasn't so Nia Jax didn't do anything wrong when I watched it. I was kind of, I don't know about this one.
Should I read the message I was sent from somebody there?
Sure.
I was obviously told not to
I know what I was told by multiple people.
Not to mention this person's name, but where is it here? 1,000% Nia's fault. She needs to be fucking fired. She is dangerous. Fire her before she cripples or kills somebody. This person was not happy.
I wasn't happy watching it. I thought, to me, it was like when you whip somebody to the steps, you can do it from far away so they are in complete control of the run into the steps. They're in control of their thing. She threw her hard, and it was way too close to throw her. That's what it looked like to me.
Well, the thing to me was she clearly stumbled and flew headfirst into the steps. And yes. I watched it multiple times, and there was nothing on the ground for her to trip on. There was no cord. There was no crack. There was no nothing. So the only way that she would have been out of control is if she was thrown very hard.
Well, she was thrown very hard.
Right into those steps.
She was thrown very hard from too short a distance into the steps. That's the one. That was the thing when I saw it. That was my take, it's like she was way too close to the steps, and she was thrown really hard. Like, if she was thrown really hard, but it's from a normal distance, essentially you're not going to be out of control by the time you get to the steps.
Well, you'd fall down prior to that, because you're not supposed to be thrown really hard. It's fake. It's a show. They pretend to throw you, and you run.
Exactly.
The last thing you want is somebody really throwing you hard into something.
Yeah, but from far away, it's not an issue.
It's still an issue, because you have to get your footing under you. Nobody should be whipping you hard into anything.
Right. Well, so hard that you, yeah. But if it's like, if you're 18 feet away and they throw you hard in real life, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to fall down.
You'll fall down 3 feet away from them, but you won't hit the steps.
But you're not going to hit the steps.
There were steps 3 feet away here.
Yeah, it did not look good. It did not look good to me. They did it. It was real quick. Unless you were looking for it, you're really not going to know. They didn't really show the blood.
Well, you could clearly see her getting whipped into the steps. She goes down. Yes. The referee goes right to her. They cut away, and the next thing you know, she's thrown into the ring. They never show her face. She'd already been, I'm sure, cleaned up and everything like that. And then Nia just hit one leg drop, pinned her, and she curls up in fetal position, and they never show her again. And then Asuka comes out and goes after Nia, and that was it. You never saw any blood. If you didn't know, you never would have known anything happened.
Yeah. But it was edited.
Yes.
So the other one is the Gronkowski. So the Gronkowski thing, when I watched it, it's kind of like, that's it. So the deal is that when he signed with the Bucks, one of the deals was that he could not do pro wrestling, because he was signed to a deal. He was going to do WrestleMania and do what he did at WrestleMania, and it was going to lead to SummerSlam, which was the big one, and also he was going to do the end of the year show at Saudi Arabia. This is when he was not going to play in the NFL, when he was a retired football player. So that was the multi-event contract, was those 3 events. And he's not doing any of them. They released him. It was a mutual release, or he asked for his release. I don't know if he had it put in his contract that if he played football, if he decided to play football, he could get a release. I would strongly presume he had that in his contract, and then he decided to play football, so that's his release. Because no NFL team is going to let a guy like him do pro wrestling matches. Not in this. I mean, this isn't. I mean, in the '60s, of course, or even in the '80s. But today, a guy like him, there's no way with the amount of money that he's making from football. So he's done. That was his blow off, I guess. He's no longer under contract to WWE. What a nothing.
All that for that.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, originally he was going to do matches for them, and that was like a big deal. He's a big superstar, and he wasn't going to play football for another season. But whatever, he changed his mind and decided to play one more season. So maybe they'll do business with him next year, once his football career ends, because he does want to do a match. He's always said that. He said he wants to do one match, and I guess with Saudi, they could get him to do 2. So. It could be down the line, but right now he's out of contract.
All right, so the show opened up with Seth Rollins coming out for a promo, and he basically, I guess this was his retirement ceremony for Rey Mysterio. That's what they claimed, and did this big, long speech, just rambling on forever about Rey. He's too humble and modest to call himself a legend. I sacrificed him for his own good, etc., etc. Shows a Rey video package, which was actually cool for the most part. There was 0 WCW footage. They had a lot of great Rey moments, and of course it ends with Seth poking his eye into the steps. And then Seth says, I'd love to be the guy to induct you into the Hall of Fame. Finally, Aleister Black interrupts. They do a match. Long match. They went through 3 commercial breaks. It was a very good match.
This match was really good.
It was a very, very good match.
Yeah.
And at the end, Humberto Carrillo actually came out earlier, and Murphy and Austin jumped up on the apron. Humberto yanked them off. He gets beaten up. But in the melee, Aleister Black rolls up Seth, and he pins him. And Seth is shocked afterwards.
They finally let someone get that win that they hadn't been letting anyone get.
That's right. His disciples jump on Aleister. They attack him. It's 3-on-2. Seth lays them both out with a curb stomp. Whole segment start to finish 40 minutes, but at least we got a very good match out of it. And a big upset win, which should help Aleister.
Yeah. And the way it was done, it did not hurt Seth at all doing that loss, which is probably why they got to do it that way. And kind of gets, kind of puts Black and Carrillo in there as a tag team. So it looks like the program obviously is going to be Theory, Rollins, and Murphy against Rey Mysterio, Humberto Carrillo, and Aleister Black. So that's the kind of the direction that it's going.
Charlie's with Angel and Zelina. Zelina's trying to cut a promo on Charlie for saying Charlie says it was controversial when Angel beat Kevin Owens, and Zelina's outraged, but Angel pulls her away, says, I got this. Says, Charlie, in love and war, everything is fair. In competition and seduction, you must always be one step ahead. I think my win last week was triumphant. And he gives her a rose, and Charlie's all smitten, so they're back to this one again.
Yep,
and they are. He leaves, and Zelina takes the rose and tears it apart.
I have to say that Charlie Caruso does this great. I mean, she is so, so many times when you have these like romance things, they're so fake, and she pulls it off.
She is very believably smitten with this Angel.
She's really good at this, so it makes for good television.
We have poor Shawn Michaels here to have to talk about the greatest wrestling match ever. Talk about a high bar, he begins. No shit. He says, as a man who's had a few great matches in his career, he thinks they can deliver. I was like, dude, your nose is growing longer every second here.
Do you, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's with Shawn Michaels' ego, and deserve it, don't get me wrong, he's one of the greatest there's ever been. Do you really think that this guy? Oh my! I mean, it's like I know
this was a massive rib on Shawn Michaels to have to do this segment here.
I mean, it's like he's a team player and everything, but there is no way that this guy thinks in his brain that these guys are going to have a better match than any of his best 10, let alone his best.
So does he think Edge is going to come out on top? And he's going to believe that time, wisdom, knowledge, and fate will give Edge the edge.
Why didn't you just say he beat him last time?
Like time, wisdom, and knowledge. I mean, that's all Randy Orton. Randy Orton's had more time in the ring. Randy Orton's had more knowledge. I mean, he's been wrestling nonstop. Edge took 9 years off.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Edge is older.
And then poor Joe has to keep pushing that this will be the greatest wrestling match of all time.
I don't even think they're going to beat... I would strongly suspect that they will not be in the ballpark of Joe's best match either.
Dave, I'm going to screw this all up by telling you how this is going to go.
And they're going to do a 2-minute match?
Of course, then they're going to have to change it. No, it's obvious.
They're going to do like a 30-minute match.
They're going to do a long match. It's going to be all wrestling. And then at the end, Randy's going to fuck him somehow with like a weapon or an object or something. He's gonna cheat in his own match. And then the heat can be... This fucker Randy screwed up what would have been the greatest match of all time by using those brass knucks or whatever gimmick he uses as a heel to win this match.
Doesn't work for me.
Well, what do you think they're going to do? Actually have the greatest match of all time? No.
I think they're going to try.
They're going to have a really good match.
I think they're going to try.
And then the out is for Randy to screw his way into a win.
That's fine. But I think they're gonna try. The one thing is it's kind of I think the ribs on Edge and Orton.
Of course it is.
Because it's like you guys they put them in a position, but it's also kind of like this mental thing. Because I'm actually really curious about how not so much the match, although I just think that they're gonna have a great match. Okay, I mean because the one thing Edge has got a lot of. He's got a lot of pride in his work. You can see, it's like he's one of those guys that, because he was a fan from childhood and it's a big deal to him and coming back.
Every interview he's ever cut.
Yeah. I mean, it's this, you don't get as good as Edge is without it being a real big deal to you. And he's really smart.
Unless you're Randy Orton, who half-asses it and doesn't give a shit, in his own words.
I actually think that was sort of like, but I mean, compared to Edge, yeah, compared to a lot of guys, that's true. Randy Orton's a guy who's able to, because of his size and his look and his talent. But still, even to be as good as Randy Orton, you have to want to be pretty good. But does he have the drive of the other guys that are, all the guys that, when you think of guys who have great matches, Randy Orton does not have their drive. I mean, that's the one thing that he doesn't have. And I can look at it from his standpoint too. It's like, why get busted up? He can make a lot of money at this, and he's done it for a long, long time. And while he's had his injuries, he hasn't beaten his body up at the level at this age that Edge did, or that, most of these guys that have great matches, one after another. Those guys beat their bodies up at a level that he has not, and he's going to be able to do this for many more years, even though he's, how old's Randy now? Is he 40, 39? Something like that, right?
Right around 40.
Yeah. So, so I don't know. But they're going to, like, the match will be really good. But so the thing is like at the
40
end,
years old.
Yeah, 40. Yeah, I think for 40 he's in pretty damn good shape. Injury wise, I'm talking about. Physically too. Obviously, but I think that it's going to be real interesting if they have a really good match. Does the manipulative ability have them convince? Will they can be able to convince the fan base that they had the match of the year? Even though I seriously, I don't see any way they can. considering some of the matches we've had this year. I don't see it. Maybe we'll be wrong, but I don't think so. But I'm just wondering if will like telling people over and over again this match is great make a lot of people just go, oh, this match was great. It's a real interesting experiment, actually.
Lana's yelling at MVP backstage. MVP says, I like you, but I got work to do. I have to get ready for my match with Drew. I don't care about your drama. She says, you're nothing but a leech trying to use my husband to revive your washed-up career. And he says, that's not true, but even if it was, wouldn't that be two of us?
That was actually a hell of a line.
She's outraged, and she slaps him. It sounded like they edited in the sound effect, which I'm a big fan of. You don't need to slap anybody that hard. And this was a good segment. MVP's great.
MVP's great. It's so funny because I just remember the story because he actually told me this years ago. This was his old character. He was in the first time. And he wanted his character essentially. It wasn't, it was with Eve Torres. And there was some angle, and he was trying to play like this cool character and all this. And this was when, like they were booking like, oh, if you see like a hot girl, right? All of a sudden, like you melt no matter who you are. And him and Levesque had a discussion, and it was, Levesque is just like, you have to do this, this, and this. And he goes, my character wouldn't do this. And it's like, no, it's not realistic because, like, if it was like a super hot girl like Eve Torres, you would. And he goes, but my character's like this, his character was like this rich NBA superstar. It's like, my character in theory would have women like this a dime of a dozen. And it's like they had a disagreement over the fact that he didn't think his character should like melt to pieces at the sight of Eve Torres. Because it's not, and Triple H thought it's not realistic if you wouldn't. So anyway, he's there with Lana and he's not melting to pieces and he's being a smart ass and her looks are not affecting him in any manner, at least as of yet in this storyline.
Kale's with Apollo for an interview in the ring and he says he's going to defend against an opponent of his choosing tonight. Long list of wrestlers, but this person really deserves it. It's Kevin Owens. Kevin comes out and says, I appreciate the offer. I'm not one to turn down title opportunities, but problem is after last week, this comes across as pity because he lost clean last week to Angel Garza.
He's bringing up that he's getting a title shot off of a loss. He's actually trying to make sense.
Apollo says there's no pity here. It's all about respect. And Kevin says, all right, Angel's going to get what's coming to him soon enough. This is about respect, great, but I still feel bad about it. And Apollo doesn't understand, and Kevin says, I feel bad. It's going to be, your first title reign is going to be a very short one. So they have this match, and they're having a very good match. They did a random low blow spot straight out of an MMA fight. Apollo sells a low blow. The referee gives him time to recover, and then they just kept wrestling. And they Owens goes for a senton. Cruz gets his knees up. They're doing all these near falls, and then Angel Garza, Andrade just hit the ring for the DQ. This finish sucked. Fans in the crowd couldn't even pretend to give a shit about it. It's awful. But it led to the tag match, which was Cruz and Owens versus Garza and Andrade. Owens doesn't care one bit, by the way, that he lost his title shot. He just walks to the corner and he's doing a tag match now. So they do the match.
Well, he even before when the match started, he did say he wanted to get back at Garza. So, in a sense, he kind of like foretold this one.
Well, he said he wanted to get back to him, but he also said that he hadn't had a title for a long time and he could use another one.
Yeah, but it was already over. I mean, the thing,
Yeah, it was over because two geeks ran in the middle of his championship match. Should have been furious.
Yes, they both should have been.
So they do this match, and...
So they were. That's why they wanted to fight the other two guys that ran in.
They did a tag match. Cruz hits the powerbomb, gets the pin on Andrade. I figured that one of these two heels was going to beat Cruz to get a title match, but they didn't do it. He won the title last week. He beat them this week. Great.
It's too early. It's too early to beat Cruz in that manner.
You can say that about matches all the time in WWE, and they still do it. I agree. I was surprised about this, but I was very happy about it.
Yeah, no, there was no point in putting him. Like you can do this. Like I don't know, maybe 2 months down the line, absolutely, we know where he would lose. But right now, you got to get him over. If you go and beat him even in the tag, it'll just be you'll be cutting his legs. It's too early after him winning to beat him, especially because they have to rehab Cruz, because you got to remember when Cruz was in SmackDown, I mean, he was like a freaking job guy. So they can't be, it was just too early to beat him. I think they probably look at the 4 and just kind of like, well, I mean, Garza, I think it is a sign, of anything that Garza in their mind is outshot Andrade, which he has.
Well, I mean, yes, number one, he's great, but I mean, if Angel Garza beat Kevin Owens clean last week and they're continuing this feud, there's no way that he should have lost this match to Apollo Crews. Andrade's doing nothing.
No. He shouldn't lose. And Owens already lost last week, so no. The logical finish. I mean, Owens could have pinned Andrade. I mean, but Cruz pinning him is probably better because Owens is more over than Cruz. Cruz needs it more, so it makes sense.
We had Kayla with Asuka, and Asuka said she bows down to no one. We had the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders bowling. And they only did one segment this week. They didn't stretch it out through the entire show, but just totally wacky. The Viking Raiders are destroying them, but then the Street Profits ask for the smoke, and it becomes midnight bowling, starlight bowling, whatever you call it. They're smashing the Viking Raiders. There's no one at the bowling alley except the one lady that works there.
Social distancing.
The bowling alleys.
But bowling alleys are closed anyway, aren't they?
Not when you're a Viking, apparently. She thinks that Ivar is cute. This is an ongoing storyline. One of the only ongoing storylines, really, in WWE. The women all love Ivar. And finally, it comes down to the last roll, and Viking Raiders win by 1 point. So in these non-wrestling competitions, it is now tied 2-2, and presumably they just have their big match at the pay-per-view as a tiebreaker.
Okay.
Sure.
Why not?
I like it. What I did not like, we have Iconics and Cross and Bliss are brawling backstage. Adam Pearce, who apparently is the GM of both brands now, he shows up and separates them.
Well, he is like a lead producer on both shows.
Sends them to the ring.
A lead. No, I didn't say the lead. He's a lead producer on both shows.
So we have Nikki Cross and Billie Kay. This match sucked. There were so many camera cuts. It must have been heavily edited. Billie gets the heat, hour-long chin lock. She's selling like a cartoon pro wrestler from the 1940s. Nikki makes a comeback, misses a high cross. Billie hits a slam, gets the pin. This was bad.
I didn't think it was good, but I had so low expectations of it that it was like, I mean, I thought it was like not good, but it was better than I expected it to be.
That is low expectations, Dave.
Well, look, it's Billie Kay.
Yes.
I mean, how high are my expectations going to be of a Billie Kay match?
Sure was. Drew did a promo.
And it wasn't Nikki Cross. It was Billie Kay.
No, it absolutely was not Nikki Cross.
Yeah.
Not for 1 second. Drew promo. He loves challenges. Beating 7 guys in 9 weeks. MVP can be lucky number 8. He should an open challenge basically to anybody. So then we had this great segment with Ray. He's at home. He's got his eyes all black. And he says, my eye's still recovering. I can't answer when I'm going to be back. They don't know. It depends on how fast I can recover. And if I get an infection, it could be the end of my career. Joe says, Seth threw your retirement party. Are you retiring? Ray says, I don't know. I don't know if it's up to me anymore. It could be cleared in weeks, months, maybe never. Question I've been thinking about for a while. Joe says, anything you'd like to address? And Ray says, he's starting to cut his promo on Seth when Dominic shows up. Dominic says, Seth is no messiah, barely even a human. Says, someone from this family needs to do something about this. You tried to end my dad's career, and now you're out there lying about how he is forced to do it for Raw, whatever. This is BS, we both know it. And Ray calms him down, and he says, my official statement is, Seth Rollins, damn you for everything you put my family through. My wife, Angie, my son, Dominic, my daughter, Aaliyah, they all helplessly watched you drove my eye into those steps. Saw blood streaming down my face, the man who provides for them suffering. You said I cried like a baby. Seth, I'm a man of forgiveness, but I will never forgive you for what you did to me and what you put my family through. Damn you, Seth Rollins. Let's go, Dominic. And he gets up to leave, but Dominic stays there and he looks in the camera and he says, Seth, you're a man of scripture. An eye for an eye. And that's it. I thought this segment was awesome.
So Dominic's back.
Dominic's back. Ray's just the greatest. He's the greatest babyface.
Ray's great. Ray's great. He doesn't get the credit he deserves, but he's absolutely great.
Dude, he's one of the best promos in this whole company. Rey Mysterio.
Oh, he's been for a while.
It's amazing.
He's been a great promo for a while. Yeah.
When I watched those 96 Nitros and there's little Rey Mysterio.
He wasn't as good a promo then at all.
Somebody would have told me, in 2020, this guy doing all this crazy shit looking like he's going to kill himself, he's going to be on Raw in 2020, and he's going to be one of the best baby faces and one of the best promos on the show. I'd have said, no way.
I wouldn't have thought that he would last that long.
Yeah.
Physically. I wouldn't have thought he would have lasted that long, let alone be a good promo, because he was always so shy.
Well, Nia comes out, cuts his promo. She says, mocks their Japanese. It's all smoke and mirrors, she says. Says, Asuka didn't earn the title. It was gifted because of hormones. Somehow I'm the villain, she says. I'm the victim, actually. Anyway.
She's the victim because they're always 2-on-1ing her.
Yes. So, between the promo and the match, we had the clips of Truth as a gardener rolling up Gronk from behind and pinning him. It's preposterous, but Gronk is just like the greatest heel. If they plan to make this guy a babyface, oh my God. That would have been a swing and a miss.
It's over anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Then we had Nia versus Kairi. We talked about this earlier. Nia beats the hell out of her forever, throws her into the steps, comes up. Well, she did come up bloody, but not on TV. They took care of her. They threw her in the ring. Nia hits a leg drop, pins her. And then Asuka hits the ring, and Nia backs off. I was furious watching this. Won't lie.
Yeah. I didn't like the spot, that's for sure. The match was the match. It was what I expected. And, she's got to go over strong. I mean, that's... Unfortunately, as long as Asuka's the champion, Kairi's role is going to be to get beat up by every challenger.
We have this great Orton promo. It says, I've been watching the network, and seems everybody thinks Ric Flair's the greatest.
You really believe he's been watching the network?
Of course not. Are you kidding me? It's like Brock Lesnar saying he was watching the network.
I know.
Or anything on TV.
Yeah.
He says, all these wrestlers seem to think Ric Flair is the greatest to ever do it. I agree. And last week on Raw, I tuned in, and Ric Flair said, in his opinion, Randy Orton is the best to ever lace up a pair of boots.
He didn't say that.
He did just say that he was going to win.
He said that after I retired that Randy Orton was the best. But he never said that Randy Orton was better than him.
He says, what?
They may have asked him to say that. He may have been supposed to say that, but he didn't say it.
Well, that's the story now. He says, you know what, Edge? You've said the same thing. You know what else you said? 2 weeks ago, you said I didn't have a passion for this business. I was handed everything, and I just did it for the paycheck. And you know what? You're right, he says. What can I say? You can't stand for 20 years. I phoned it in and half-assed it, and I've accomplished more than you and everybody else in the locker room has accomplished. You had to scratch and claw your way here. All I had to do was be Randy Orton. Laced up my boots, got in the ring. I proved I was the best, and I'm going to do it at Backlash. I set the bait, and you bit. And your storybook ending will be rewritten. Awesome promo.
Yep. Really good.
Charlotte then cut a promo. Total heel promo. Buries the fans. Buries the wrestlers.
I got to say something real quick because people keep bringing up Jessamine Duke in the crowd because she stands out. Okay, so you know why she is like the greatest fan in the crowd? Because that was when we used to go to PWG. That's what she would do for like 4 hours. I mean, she was. I mean, and granted, lots of people are in that building, but it's like she does that. Like, that's her, like, real fan stuff. She's way, way loud and every move and jumping up and down and, like I don't recall. She was always with Shayna, and I don't recall. Shayna always was to, I didn't like watch. I mean, they because they were usually like only a couple seats away from me anyway. But Jessamine was always just like, like quiet girl. And then the minute the match starts, it's like she's just going crazy for every match the whole night, doing all the chants. And Shayna, I always thought, was like sitting there studying for the most part. She didn't really like go as crazy, but so like I'm kind of like watching, and like all these other people, like half of them don't even know what it's like to be fans because they weren't, and she's like knows what it's like to be like this crazy fan. So she's out there, just whatever, just being way cheering the baby faces and booing the heels and everything.
Well, she booed the hell out of Charlotte. Charlotte says, "Every single one of you here wants to achieve, and I hope you achieve as well, so that one day you can bow down to me." So we have Asuka Charlotte. They actually had a very good match until the shitty finish.
Yeah, actually, I thought this match was really good, and then, what a finish.
We had submission attempts. We had deadlift Germans by Charlotte. We had flying arm bars, triangles, and finally, Asuka gets bumped outside. Her own music plays. Nia comes out, making fun of her and doing her dance. The referee rings the bell. Apparently, Asuka had been counted out of the ring.
It wasn't even explained, but yes, she lost on a count out.
And Asuka runs down and runs her over with a lariat.
Nia runs her over with a lariat.
Nia did. That sucked.
Nia just ran her over, and then the segment ended, yeah. And they played Nia's music even though Charlotte won.
Yep. Charlie's with Lana. She says Bobby told her not to go to ringside because her beauty is too distracting, but Bobby never said I couldn't go to the ring during MVP's match. So it's MVP versus Drew McIntyre. Lashley's out there. And Lana comes out, and she's there, and nothing happened with her. Did one single thing happen with Lana in this match that I missed?
No, just Bobby glaring at her for coming out.
So she's there, and
there was a reason for her being there. It's to like further whatever
irritate her husband.
Yeah, further irritate her husband for wherever they're going. Yeah.
So they do this match, and this match was totally rushed. Lashley pulls...
like 2.5 minute match.
Yeah, he goes for the Claymore. Lashley pulls MVP outside. Drew hits the big Undertaker dive. Mostly hit them, but crashed on the floor, which looked like it sucked. Throws MVP in the ring, hits the Claymore. The moment he hits the Claymore, Lashley puts him in the full Nelson, and the show immediately goes off the air.
He got the
He
pin.
did pin him, yes.
He got the pin, and then Lashley puts him in the full Nelson.
It was like Claymore, pin, full Nelson, off the air. Boom.
That's what they wanted to do. Because, I mean, this is a taped show, so they could have edited the show any way they wanted. So that was very clearly, the idea is just quick full Nelson. You don't know how he gets out of it. Because I don't think you want to show him breaking it. But the one thing that you also notice is that it wasn't like he screamed, and he didn't cry, and he didn't tap either. So you just go off the air.
He was just stuck.
He was stuck at that moment, yeah. So, I mean, it builds up the match. I don't think anyone believes Lashley's going to beat him, and it would be really stupid if he does.
I would be pretty surprised if anybody beat him. Nobody should beat him till there's... Although...
But we need a challenger.
I would not do this, okay? I would not do this. But I could see the argument of having some heel beat him.
Not now.
And then when fans return, he gets to do his big championship win in front of a whole bunch of fans, which he did not get at a WrestleMania.
I think that when fans come, you bring Brock back for the rematch. But
sure.
That's how I would do it.
I don't think Brock's coming back without fans, quite frankly.
He did WrestleMania with no fans.
Well, because he was they'd been building that matchup for a long time.
Yeah.
And they took fans away 2 weeks early. So
I would say this, if there are no fans at SummerSlam, and I know Vince really doesn't want to do that, but if there are no fans at SummerSlam, I think Brock will be on that show.
All right, a couple of mailbag questions here, then we got to wrap it up. By 1983, this person says, do you think Bob Backlund's WWF title run had gone on too long and was hurting business? If so, who do you think should have had the title instead?
Okay, so it wasn't hurting business because Jimmy Snuka was so hot, but Bob Backlund really was. He really cooled off in '82. I thought it was too long, but at the end of the day, if they were going to make a change, it would have been to go to Jimmy Snuka, and I don't think that they trusted Jimmy Snuka, whereas they trusted Bob Backlund. So I think that was the reason. But, Jimmy Snuka had far surpassed Bob Backlund by that point. Yeah.
This person here says, Dave wrote in the 2003 back issue that Fred Blassie had to retire at age 55 due to the State Athletic Commission. Did Moolah not wrestle in California, or was the rule just ignored? She wrestled until she was 64.
As the years went on, the commission was way more lax than it was in the early 70s. In the early 70s, the California Commission was pretty strict on their rules. As far as I don't know. I'm trying to think if Moolah worked in California after, let's see, what year was Moolah? Was born in 21, right? So 55 would be 76. By the late 70s, the commission was a lot more lax than it was in the early 70s. So, but I don't recall Moolah after 76. I mean, I'd have to look it up. I don't remember her working for Shire. I don't remember off the top of my head her working for LaBelle either after 76, but Blassie worked later. Because Blassie, that's one of the things, Blassie stopped and then became manager, but Blassie came back 5 years later, and he did some matches with Tolis when he was probably around 60. But because that's when things were just way more, like I said, way more lax.
As far as Jeff Cobb seemed like he was potentially in talks with AEW before everything happened with COVID. Haven't seen his name pop up anywhere since. Any idea where he potentially stands as far as AEW, Japan, Ring of Honor, etc.?
His priority is New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's going to work Ring of Honor, and that's what he wants. He wants New Japan Pro Wrestling. If not, he would have signed with Ring of Honor. They certainly want him, and if he. If he wanted to, if he was panicking or anything like that, he had that opportunity. They absolutely, they liked his match with Moxley, and they were trying to sign him. And, but yeah, he loves New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And this person here says, why didn't the After Mags report Andre's submission loss to Inoki? They weren't on good terms with WWE back then.
They didn't report it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's just one of the things they did. Andre was one of their, in their, they had their guys who they protected as well, and Andre was one of them. Especially after Vince Sr. yelled at that NWA convention about Bill Apter printing that story of Jerry Lawler beating Andre by count out in Louisville, which didn't even happen, and Vince Sr. just, you guys are ruining the business. They were, in fact, ruining the business by printing a story that Jerry Lawler beat Andre by a count out.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. The New Observer is going to be out on Thursday. Back issue's up on the front page right now. We got a ton of shows up on the front page. All sorts of great stuff, so check it out. And that is it. We'll talk to you again after a while.